So today what I wanted to review with you is the 4 stages of relationships. And this is always important for anyone who's first joining our business team to understand this, because it helps keep people engaged and understand what's going on as they go through business. But it's something that you can apply to any area of life. You know, the first stage is your honeymoon phase. You know, so in the honeymoon stage, it's like, I love you too, there's nothing you could do wrong, I know, it's so happy, and we're all really good. And depending on the individual, it determines like how long the honeymoon phase lasts. But you know, we don't really see the problems as easy, and all the good stuff are like really, really good. Anybody's been married, they know what the deal is. You go through this phase called honeymoon. Then after the honeymoon phase, the next phase you go through is what we call the reality phase. Reality phase is, yep, you leave your socks on the floor in the living room and you didn't take out the trash again. You know, so you start noticing some of the errors and the problems. You know, this is like real deal anymore. Before, like, your friends were like, yo, his breath stink or her breath stink. You're like, no, they're awesome. Reality is like, you need to do something about halitosis. So that's just a phase that you go through, and reality leads us directly in to our next phase of business, or next phase of relationship, excuse me. And that this is the phase that most relationships end, which is called conflict. Because as we deal with the things that are in our reality, conflict will arise. Every relationship has conflict in there, and most people are very unskilled in conflict resolution. This is the reason why in the interview process, I ask questions like, give me an example of how you dealt with conflict at the previous place you worked with a coworker. Many times dealing with conflict with a client is easy because it's scripted. This is what the policies say we need to do. That's what it is. But there's no like set script on, if you have a conflict with someone you work with, how do you deal with that? Now, some people use what we call the avoidance technique. I'm just going to make believe there is no problems. You know, that doesn't really work here too well because we're so close and so small. That doesn't work. But unless we deal with conflict, the next thing that happens, unmanaged conflict ends in separation. In a marriage, it's called divorce. Number one cause of divorce today is unresolved issues. I think it's called something weird like that. You know, so it's not even like infidelity, abuse. It's just we don't know how to deal with our issues, so I want out. But the reality is that every relationship is going to have conflict. But if we can get to that 4th stage of relationship, which is resolution, coming to resolution, then we can kind of go back through that honeymoon phase once again. So you talk to people who've been married 30, 40 years, and they're like, oh, you know, the longer I'm married to her, the more I love her. You talk to someone married a year or two, they're like, am I sure I made the right decision? Because you're still working their way through some of these phases, and there's no timeline to say this is going to last 3 months, or it's going to last 3 weeks, or 3 days. You know, it just all depends on how these people deal with the conflicts as they come up. Because the reality is that there are conflicts during honeymoon. There's conflict as we're dealing with reality. And if we can resolve them quicker, we kind of feel like we never go into a deep sea series of conflict. So I just want to bring that up because working here at Senior Fit, I'd like to think that we'll always be in the honeymoon phase, but the reality is we're going to go through these different stages of relationship. And if we know that going in, then when we know, okay, we're at the reality stage. I think even when Sean came, we were like, oh yeah, this is honeymoon stage. And the other times is, oh, this is reality stage. And maybe sometimes like people school is not the best. And it's like, oh, this is conflict. But as long as you confront the conflicts and we come up with a plan of resolution, we can always go back into honeymoon. Questions to me?
I'm thinking.
No worries. Any questions you have, Sean, behind the camera?
Nope. No questions.
Cool. So last thing I'll end with then is the best way to deal with conflict here is face to face. You know, so and the reason why is because tone. Go ahead. You got a question?
How long do you want the conflict to be? Like, so we have a conflict, you and I. How long do you want it to go on before we resolve it? Like, right away? Or?
Yeah, so great question. So it's important to know those you labor among. I like to deal with conflict as soon as they happen. If I step on your toe and you don't like the fact that I damaged your new shoes, I need you to pull me aside your first available opportunity and be like, Evans, you messed up my shoes. And I don't, that's the third time, or the first time I kind of was like, hey, but that was 2 times scuffing my shoes. We need to fix this. So with me, I like to deal with conflict as soon as it happens. Because my personality type, which is great, is when I have a problem, I show up. It's like, if you ever seen like Candy in the summer and ants. They show up right away. So I show up right away to that conflict. But as soon as I'm finished with it, I am finished with it. So I don't like the residual. I like tomorrow when I show up, it's like, hey, I'm so happy to see you, versus, well, he didn't say hey as fast. Is it because I didn't reply to that email? I don't like that. No guessing. To me, it's just too tough. I prefer we just go, okay, boom. But once we finish with it, I like it to be over with. So no residual baggage. Someone knows if you're in trouble tomorrow, it's because something you did tomorrow. It's not because something you did 2 weeks ago. So really, really important to me. So I'll deal with it. I'll go through my little fussing thing. We learned something over this weekend called the 5-minute rule. So you take 5 minutes and you get it all out. And then after that, we move on. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can't stand you, your breath stinks, and you don't pay on time. You get it all done, and then after that, we move forward. So that's just kind of like the idea. Great question. Other questions?
For the seeing you fit, what stage would you want us to consistently be in?
I like honeymoon, but the reality is that as we go through different things, it could be in a project. You do a project, and it's like, oh, okay, man, that was really awesome. And while we're in it, man, we're gelling. But if we understand, if we live in a place of reality, which is a good measurement of what are the pluses and minuses, and we know that we have a technique of how to deal with the conflicts as they arise, it's a good place to be. As long as the reality is healthy, it's a good place to be. And so in every relationship, we just signed on with this company that's doing our websites, and I interviewed a bunch of their former clients, and current clients, I should say, and I said, what do you like about them? And then what don't you like? So when I went into that relationship, I knew, hey, we're not going to have a lot of control on the web forms. If we need to add a new page to our website, we're going to have to send it to them, and they have to add it. So I realized my reality going into a relationship is I'm giving up some control in order to get the amount of leads I'd like to get from my site. So I think reality is a really good place to be in. This is a horrible place to be in. And most relationships die here without having a game plan or resolution. Now, whenever trust is breached, then it takes a little bit more time to get back to honeymoon, because trust is earned. Forgiveness is granted, but trust is earned. So we never want to violate one another's trust, because that's really, really, that'll destroy relationships over time. Cool.